Hi, this is Dustin Stevens of RI Kayak Fishing Adventures. I brought along a few of my kayaks today inside of the beautiful Saltwater Edge. We have here the Hobie Pro Angler 360, the Hobie Outback, and right down here we have the new Hobie Links. So we'll talk about everything that I have set up on them from front to back, and you'll get to have a good feel for my kayaks. Alright, here we have the Hobie Outback. This is a great do-it-all kayak. If you look at all the models in the Hobie fleet, if they were to all have a baby, it would be the Hobie Outback. It's fast enough, stable enough, light enough, plenty of storage space. The riggability on it is great with a lot of gear track and H-rail on it. So you just can't beat it as far as freshwater, saltwater, river fishing, big water, whatever you like, the Hobie Outback gets it done. Starting at the front, one thing that I always keep on my kayak is a Burley Pro bumper bro. Those things really help protect the bottom of the hull when you're coming into the boat ramp, which is concrete or rocks or what have you. That's something that you always want to have on your kayak. Moving back a little bit to the front hatch area. The front hatch bucket doesn't come with the Outback, but this is something that I like to have. This is great storage space, and it also keeps my battery. I usually run a Naqua 10 amp hour or a 20 amp hour battery depending on how much juice I need. And you can also throw in your first aid kit. You can throw fish in here, ice, beer, whatever you choose to put in the front hatch bucket. And it's also very dry, has a little seal, you know, around the edge, so it keeps everything in there nice and bone dry. Moving back a little further, I love the Outback because it has the front rod holders on each side, so when you're landing a fish or if you need to retie or anything like that, you'll have a space to put your rod so that you're able to maneuver the line or the fish or whatever you're dealing with at the time. Most of the Hobie fleet uses the Turbo 180 kick-up drive. It's really awesome. It goes forward and reverse with just a quick pull cable right there. It's also really cool with the kick-up fins if you're in shallow water, if you're around rocks, oyster beds, wood, stumps, what have you. When you roll over it, you don't have to worry about damaging your drive because it just kicks up nice and easy. You start pedaling again and it gets right back into place just as you were originally pedaling. So this is an awesome thing for any type of water, especially shallow water that you may be fishing. We back up a little further. One of my favorite things about the Outback and a few other kayaks in the Hobie fleet is the center hatch bin here. This is another great area for storage. I usually keep my tackle in here or my hand towels, first aid kit, whatever you want to keep dry. This center hatch bucket can help out with, and it's a way that you don't have to bring as much tackle on the water, even though I do. But you can put your tackle in here and have it, ready right, in your lap if you need to change some things out. The gunnel area on the Outback is also really cool. You're able to keep things like your pliers, your fish grips, your scissors, what have you, right in there all the time. And I never take that stuff out even while I'm driving or whatever. So this is a very nice area. It's also awesome that you can put your fish finder. I usually keep my fish finder on the right side. I like to keep the left side of all of my kayaks clean so I can land fish pretty easily on there. And I use the Lowrance HDS Live with side scan. Side scan definitely helps when you're on the water. It cuts down your search time almost in half. So being able to put it right there where I will be sitting is a really awesome thing. The seat is very comfortable as well. I sit in this thing for sometimes 10 plus hours and don't really have too many issues. So it's like a nice little office chair. One cool thing about it, if you decide to beach your kayak and just sit, somewhere on the shore, it has little feet underneath, so it can kind of make it a nice little beach chair if you want to go that route. It'll just take me a few seconds to set it up here. Right, so at the end of your fishing day, you want to kind of hang out on shore, you can sit in this nice little beach chair right here and do whatever you please. Moving back a little further.
Let's cut there.
Okay. In addition to the comfortable seat and the location, you also have two nice cup holders right here, so I can always put my nice Yeti bottle in, and I usually keep my radio very handy in one of my cup holders. It's a safety item that you definitely want to have in saltwater. Moving back a little further, this doesn't come with the Outback, but this is a very nice addition to any of the kayaks in the Hobie lineup, which is the Hobie Live Well. Early season, when you get a lot of bunker in the upper bay, you can always snag a couple and throw them in the live well, so you'll have them ready. So in between catches or bluefish eating your bunker in half, you'll have one right here, right behind your seat, ready to go. One thing as well is it comes with 3 rod holders already, so you can take out a couple rods. I also added an extra rod holder on here just so I can have room for one more. And I'll usually throw in my safety flag, which is something you always want to have out on the water. They're not big flags, but the more visibility, the better. And then, bring in tackle. So right here, just have a Game On Exo Jig, which can be used at any time of year for anything. And then a nice 13.5-inch gravity tackle eel. So this would be a solid lineup if I was going striper fishing or going for blues, in the live well. So that's pretty cool. Outside of that, you have a really big tank well here. So if you didn't want to put anything, back here, you can put a big cooler there, and cooler size up to maybe about a Yeti 110 or something like that. So if you're out and you're trying to harvest stripers or big bluefish, or you're just going for a mixed bag of fluke and sea bass and everything, having a nice big cooler back here in this tank well area can be beneficial for you as well. On all of my kayaks, I like to have anchor trolleys. I'm not one to anchor a lot, but just having them on the kayak makes it a lot easier if I decide to. Also, if I'm keeping fish, then I'll put my fish stringer onto the anchor trolleys, so it's very accessible. If I need to add more on there, or if you see a shark or something like that and you got to pull them up real quick, then having them close by on this trolley is awesome. The cool thing about it is you just kind of maneuver it forward or back, whichever way you want to anchor based on the wind or the current. So it's something I don't use a lot, but it's a good thing to have in case I need it. Alrighty, next up in the fleet is the Hobie Links. This is a newer kayak to the Hobie fleet, and it's kind of getting some buzz. People are wondering, what do I use this kayak for? Is it a leisure kayak? Is it a freshwater only kayak? Can I go offshore with it? And the answer to that is it can do all things. It can be used just as much as the Outback or the PA. It's going to be a little more of a wet ride and rougher conditions, but this kayak can handle anything that any of the, I guess, more normal kayaks can handle. As I mentioned with the Outback, up front I have the Burley Pro Bumper Bro. This kayak is a slightly different material, so you really want to protect the hull as much as you can, and I think the Bumper Bro does that. Again, when you're coming into rocks or you're coming into concrete at the boat ramp, I think that's a very nice addition to it. You won't see too many storage options on the Links. It's kind of that fishing kayak and stand-up paddleboard hybrid, so you're not going to have any storage space, so you have to be really creative with how you rig up the Hobie Links. With the Hobie Links, you have to be really creative with how you rig it up. Whether I'm going out for keeper fish or not on the Links, most of the time I'm going to have the Hobie fish bag in the front, and this is the medium-sized bag, so it'll be able to act as like that front hatch that we talked about on the Outback, or like we will talk about on the PA, where you can put your battery in there if needed. You can put extra tackle in there if needed, ice and water or whatever you choose to put in there. Also, it helps with some of that that splash that come over the bow in rough water. It kind of breaks a little bit of that up, so you get a little less wet if you have the fish bag in the front. So that's something that I like to have. If you need to store anything, this bungee right here is also pretty awesome. Moving back just a little bit.
Real quick, how do you mount the fish bag to the deck?
Oh, sweet. I would mount this fish bag to the deck with a bungee of some type, or sometimes I use my rod leashes to just kind of put it in the little anchor points, which is at the front of the kayak. But to be totally honest, you really don't have to mount it. If you have any type of weight in there, it's going to stay on the kayak for the most part. Let alone if you have ice and you're loaded down with, you know, all the keeper fluke or whatever that you just caught, that thing will stay right in place even if you're in pretty rough water. So that's a good addition. Coming back a little bit, you have this kayak does tend to be a little loud slapping the waves, or so if you drop something on it, you know, you'll kind of get that very loud noise. So if you're trying to you know, be stealthy, especially in a freshwater situation, then this deck padding really comes in handy because you're always dropping stuff, hooks and sinkers and, you know, what have you. So this kind of quiets the kayak down a little bit, and you can also add more deck padding if you want to keep the whole hull quiet. Another addition that I added to the Links is the H-rails. So these provide area where I can put my GoPro mount, put the Hobie mini tackle bin, and also where I can mount my fish finder. So these don't come standard with the Links. However, if you didn't want to go the H-rail route, it does come with some gear track right in here, so you can mount the same stuff that I just mentioned here if that's good enough for you. But being that I'm so used to the PA, the Hobie Pro Angler was my first fishing kayak, and I had that H-rail, so that always sticks with me, and I'm able to mount a lot of things here. That's very useful. So moving back, like I said, I have my GoPro, and I use the Yak Attack lock and load mount. This thing is pretty awesome. You can snap this thing off really easy and put it back on. You can turn to get whatever money shot that you want while you're on the water, and it will not come off. If you happen to knock it off for any reason, the beauty of it is that it floats. So that's a great addition. On the other side, I have my fish finder attached to a ram mount, which is pretty standard. It's probably one of the more popular mounts for fish finders that kayak fishermen use. Right here is the mini tackle bin. As mentioned, you don't have a ton of storage space on here, so you have to figure out whatever way you can to store your necessities. And I like to have my scissors, my fish grips, and my pliers all ready to go, as well as my radio. So because I don't have a cup holder here, then I keep my radio in there so that I can have it ready at all times. The seat is very comfortable. It's also removable to be a camping chair as well, just how it's sitting in here. The drive uses a 180 kick-up. They don't come with turbo fins, but it's pretty much kind of the same idea for the most part. So as I mentioned earlier, with this being a very flat fishing platform, with no real storage or anything like that, you really have to be creative on how you mount things. So as I mentioned, I've added the H-rail to it to give me a little extra riggability with this kayak, but you have to be, you know, creative in how you mount your transducer as well. So what I use is the Yak Attack switchblade transducer arm. So this is just able to be mounted off to the side, so you won't have to drill any holes or anything, and you just hang it off to the side of the kayak, drop it in the water, and you have a transducer that can show your side scan really well. It really doesn't get in the way or anything. Sometimes you might get a little seaweed on it if you're going through an area with seaweed, or if you're in freshwater with grass or whatever, but this is the most convenient way on the Links to mount a fish finder transducer, so that helps. The Links come standard with a cup holder. I opted for a aftermarket product, which is a rod holder, which is pretty cool. Like I mentioned, on the Outback, you have those front rod holders, so if you land a fish or if you need to retie, you can kind of put it in. And right here on the Links with this, I'm just able to put this rod right at the seat and still do the same things as far as retying or managing a fish on the kayak. So this is a really awesome product. I think it's from RI Kayak Fishing. So that's something that you can kind of look forward to. We talked about the seat a little bit. The rudder is detachable, so you can clip it on either side of the seat that you want. And it's, you know, kind of right at a convenient spot right by your leg, so you can turn the kayak really easily. The rudder deploy system is right over here, so this is a really easy way to kind of reach back and get your steering going there. On the back of the seats, I usually have the Hobie seat bag. I like to put my phone, my wallet, my keys in here in certain situations. Most of the time I have my phone on my PFD, but if I want to store it away, then I'll put it in this bag right here, because it has a pocket inside of a pocket. So if you flip, which happens, you know that you won't lose your valuables. So that's a cool thing. All right, guys, last but definitely not least, this is the beast right here. This kayak is a tank, but it's a really awesome fishing platform. This is Hobie's flagship kayak, the Hobie Pro Angler. This is the 14-foot model. This is a 14-foot length and 360 model. With the 360 drive, you can kind of go in all types of directions. It's a really, really cool drive system. Starting at the front, the theme continues, a Burley Pro bumper bro. I love to protect the hull of a kayak the best that I can, and I think that's one of the best options. As mentioned before, as far as the anchor trolley goes, same theme here. One on each side, slides back and forth. Right here you'll see a larger fish bag than what we used on the Links. So this is going to be in a situation where I'm guiding kind of a specific bottom fishing trip, especially during tog season, where if you're taking a couple clients out, it can be easy to have a big limit of fish. So you want a large fish bag that can accommodate multiple keepers, or bigger blues, or in a case where you do want to keep a striper, then this is the bag to have. They made this bag specifically for the Pro Angler, however it fits pretty solid on the Outback as well. Coming back a little further, you have a huge front hatch area. I throw my battery in there the same as I do on the Outback, so I have a ton more room. But some people that use the Pro Angler, they launch with a couple bags of ice in there, so as they get keepers throughout the day, they can put pretty large fish in this front hatch area. So that's a really cool thing about the Pro Angler. This kayak was definitely made with a serious kayak angler or tournament angler in mind. You have 6 horizontal rod storage spaces here, so if you want to carry a lot more rods than your crate can fit, or if you're in an area with trees and other low overhang bridges, etc., you can have your rods laying flat instead of sticking up 7 or 8 feet in the air on the crate. So this is a really cool feature. Same thing with the deck pad, is non-slip, so if you want to stand throughout the day, and this thing is about 38 inches wide, so you have plenty of standing room. Similar to the Outback, it also has the center hatch area that we showed you earlier, so that's something that's a kind of a constant between the Pro Angler and the Outback. The Pro Angler comes standard with the H-rail, different than the Links where I added the H-rail there for storage. All the Pro Anglers that are on the market now, they have H-rail on them, and again, this allows you to mount different things on there, like my Yak Attack lock and load mount for my GoPro, or my RAM mount for my fish finder. So this does really well there. We didn't talk about it on the Outback, but the Pro Angler and the Outback have dual rudder control. So if you're left hand, right hand, whichever way you want to steer, that's a really cool feature for people while you're trolling or talking on the phone or whatever you want to do. The seat is kind of a dream seat here. It's like an office chair. You can get so many different positions. Raising the bottom of it, if you want your legs to sit up higher or lower throughout the day. You can also recline a little bit more if you want to, or bring the seat more upright. So this is a really cool thing. You can sit this seat high or low. So this is the high position for the seat, which typically if you're in a sight fishing situation, that you would want to sit up more high, or some people just like sitting up high. When I'm on big water, I like to sit pretty low and tucked in. So at this point, you kind of drop the seat down, and you're able to sit pretty low, so you'll have a lower center of gravity in chop or potentially rough water. Sweet. Similar to the Outback, the Pro Angler has a huge tank well area, so you can fit that big cooler. I have a crate. This is actually the personal crate that I use on it. I keep my cup holder attached to it, and the cool thing about the H crate is it also has H-rail on it, so you're able to mount those Hobie accessories on the H crate. So if you don't have a Hobie kayak and you want to use that type of mounting system, then the H crate is the way to go. I added 2 rod holders on mine, so I'm able to carry 6 total on the crate, and I can get up to a lot more if I wanted to. The paddle holder on the Pro Angler is a little different. It's, you know, kind of a clip in back here, so it keeps the paddle out of the way but easily accessible if you need to grab it. Usually if I'm going to bring my wheels on the water, I'll just store them just like this in the scupper holes so that I'm able to have them as soon as I'm able to get to the launch area. Right in the back of the PA, again, I have a safety flag, and that's mounted to the back H bar back there, so it's very visible. You can't get to it if you need to on the water easily, but to me that's the best place to put it on the Pro Angler. The one thing about kayaks is they're getting really popular now and stuff. However, you have to keep in mind that you still are in a kayak, so storage could be limited. So some things that you can do, like I mentioned earlier, is have a crate system. That's going to allow you to keep the extra stuff that you just can't fit anywhere else. The beauty of some of the Hobie kayaks that I mentioned today is they have that center hatch. They have nice front hatch areas that you're able to use. I use a seat bag on all the kayaks as well, so you can put some extra stuff in there if you want to. You just have to be a little creative in how you want to store stuff, and planning what you want to use on the water and having it ready to go is going to be very key for you in a less stressful day on the water. So yeah, I mean, certain attachments that you can use, like I like these Hobie mini bins. Even if I'm tautog fishing and I don't have my radio in there, if I want to clip my radio to my life vest, I can start pre-cutting some crabs and I can put them in here too. So that's something that's something that I like to have on both the Pro Angler and the Links that we talked about. All right, guys, so we talked about rod storage and how to carry as many rods as possible with you. I'll usually, either whether I'm guiding or fishing alone, I'll usually bring about 5 to 6 setups, and I have 6 here, all in the crate. And this time of year, you have the beauty of everything running. I mean, bonito are right around the corner, striper and blues are around. You have good fluking. Tautog season just opened up. So you have kind of a number of options, and I try to bring, you know, a little everything when I get on the water. So first up, I have a Daiwa Saltist 15 size, and it's paired with a Jigging World Nexus Heavy. And this is a great tube and worm rod for me. This is a Butchie built tube, makes some great quality tackle that just flat out catches fish. I use this for tube and worm. I mean, it can handle any size striper that you can catch in our area. And I have, you know, no qualms about it. I go 30-pound braid on here to this is probably a 30-pound leader, but usually 30 or 40 is kind of the heaviest I go for any type of fishing. I'm a light line guy. Coming up next, this is a Tsunami Carbon Shield Heavy rod with a Tranks 301, left-handed model of the Tranks. This is going to be a gravity tackle eel. This is a 13.5-inch size. So it looks big and it could be intimidating, but this thing also flat out catches fish. Going back a little further, it's another Jigging World rod, and this is going to be a Vanford 4000 size. This is spooled with 20-pound braid, and I think this is a 30-pound leader. Right here you have the Game On's new topwater lure, their X-Walk. I caught my biggest fish of the year so far on this same lure in the bone color. So this is something that you probably want to keep on you on the water. Moving right along, it's a St. Croix Avid Inshore with a Daiwa 3000 ballistic on there. So this is a really, really light tackle setup. So this is something you can use for your sea bass, your scup, and also for Albion Bonito. This thing will launch this little Game On Exo jig. This is the smallest size they make, and around this time of year, fish are keyed in on smaller bait. So this thing could pretty much match, you know, anything in our area. So you always want to have a nice epoxy jig on you. And this is a 7-foot medium power rod. So that's the fourth in the lineup here. As I mentioned, Tautog season opened up. This is a great tautog fishing setup. Another Jigging World rod. This is the Nexus Extra Heavy with a tautog candy jig. It's football style jig on there. I mean, if tautog is open and you have crabs on you, you always want to have a heavy duty setup for tautog. On this rod is my Daiwa Saltiga 15 size reel. It's 30-pound braid to a 40-pound leader. And this is my favorite conventional reel that I own. I have this one and the Saltis, but this just gets it done for me. It just feels so powerful when I'm out there. So this is number 5 in the lineup. And last but not least, it's August. When you can't get anything on top water, or no stripers or blues are biting, it's a good idea to have a nice bottom presentation. And I use this for sea bass and fluke. This is another Jigging World rod, Jigging World Nexus Heavy with a Daiwa Coastal, which is a 150 size bait casting style reel. And on here I have 15-pound braid to a 20-pound leader. This is just a standard high-low rig for fluke. I want to say this is the Berkley bucktail with a Tsunami glass minnow teaser, if I'm not mistaken. But this can catch sea bass. It'll catch a lot of sea robins too, and it can definitely catch some fluke. So if you want a nice light tackle setup, this is going to do it for bottom fishing. Most of the rods I use are anywhere from 7 foot to 7.5 feet. I do have some that are a little longer and shorter, but the average is usually going to be a 7-foot rod. You want something that's long enough so if you need to reach around the bow when you have fish that are running as you reel them up to the kayak, that you can lean forward and kind of reach around the bow. So all these will be able to accomplish that goal. Alright guys, so that's going to pretty much do it for the 3 types of kayaks that I use. I really appreciate you watching. For most of the stuff that I mentioned, you can definitely find it at the Kayak Center of Rhode Island down in Wickford. That's where I purchased all of these kayaks and probably 99.99% of accessories. All the rod, the reel, the tackle that I use can be purchased right here at Saltwater Edge. Those are 2 good local businesses that you can support to get the same setup or similar stuff if you need it. As mentioned earlier, I do guided kayak fishing trips, so feel free to check out my website, rikfa.com. We are also on Instagram and Facebook as well, Rhode Island Kayak Fishing Adventures. That's pretty much it. You can find me on Instagram, Dustin Goes Fishing. I post a lot of my own personal catches. Our Instagram business page is usually for client catches, so if you're curious about kayak fishing and want to give it a try, freshwater, saltwater, feel free to contact me and we'll get you out there. Remember to always wear that PFD.